Who would you get if you took a Dirty Harry type character and set him in the late 21st century in a post-apocalyptic world overrun by violent crime? Well, you'd get Judge Dredd, of course. I'm Stephen Archibald, and welcome to my movie podcast.
800 million people living in the ruin of the old world. Only one thing fighting for order in the chaos. The men and women of the Hall of Justice.
Peachtrees is the manufacturing base for all the slow-mo in Mega City 1.
You know how often we get a judge up in Peachtrees?
Well, you got one now.
Hello. I bid you a warm welcome to my podcast, They Came From Within, Cult Movie Reviews. Filled with Dread. Dread 2012. Where Sherlock Holmes is arguably the most celebrated crime fighter in literature, Judge Dredd must surely be a contender for numero uno when it comes to comic book and graphic novel heroes who don't have a superpower. Although it should be added that they're clearly polar opposites as individuals. I loved reading the British comic 2000 AD as a youngster, and Judge Dredd was introduced in the second issue, dated the 5th of March 1977. This ultra-macho lawman was co-created by the talented writer John Wagner and the gifted illustrator Carlos Esquerra. Dredd quickly became an iconic figure in popular culture. Inevitably, he made it onto the big screen in 1995. Danny Cannon's movie, with Sylvester Stallone in the lead role, may have divided fans and critics, but it was lovely to look at. And, despite its mega-violent content, Pete Travis's Dredd looks great too. Better still, it's superior to the Stallone movie, and much closer in spirit and tone to the original comic book. In short, this film rocks. This movie is set in the year 2080. In the metropolis, known as Mega City 1, crime runs rampant. Lawmen and women, known as judges, are sanctioned to wipe out or detain hardened criminals. The most notorious judge of them all, Dredd, finds himself having to work with a rookie judge called Cassandra Anderson, investigating a highly addictive drug known as slow-mo. Dredd and Anderson wind up getting trapped in a 200-story tower block called Peachtrees. This formidable block is run by a brutal ex-prostitute called Madeline Mama Madrigal and her not-so-merry men. Dredd and Cassandra will have to pit their wits and fighting skills against Mama and a heavily tooled-up army. Mama is also responsible for the mass production of slow-mo, a drug which makes its user perceive time at 1/100th of its normal duration. The dashing New Zealand actor Carl Urban was very much interested in playing the protagonist. At this stage, Carl was already known for appearing in The Chronicles of Riddick, The Bourne Supremacy, Doom, and Red, and of course, the cinematic reboot of Star Trek, where he plays the irascible but lovable Dr. McCoy. Urban dedicated himself fully to the part, building his body up and going through rigorous training and tactical courses. Carl even insisted on riding the Lawmaker motorcycle himself. It's reported that he took the method acting approach during filming. Carl stayed in character around his fellow actors, and he never removed his helmet. Speaking of which, there are at least two serious flaws in the 1995 Judge Dredd movie. One, that he is saddled with a so-called comical partner, and two, Stallone spends most of the movie with his face exposed. We are never, ever supposed to see Dredd's face, just his mouth and chin. It's part of the mystique to wonder what he looks like. This brilliant movie does away with both of these failings. There's no room for vanity or distractions in this version. And we have a fine British actress as the main villain, Mama Madrigal.
She has control of everything. Levels 1 to 200.
This is Mama. Somewhere in this block are two judges.
That's not good.
I want him dead.
We're gonna have to go through him. Rookie, you ready?
Yeah.
You look ready.
Lena Headey is well known around the world for playing Sarah Connor in Terminator, The Sarah Connor Chronicles, and Cersei Lannister in Game of Thrones. Therefore, she's already shown she's got plenty of backbone. Even so, her performance in Dredd is truly sinister. By contrast, we have the delightful Olivia Thirlby in the role of Judge Cassandra Anderson, an innocent young woman with psychic abilities who matures fast after a baptism of fire. Her character's development over the course of the film is deftly handled. Dredd was filmed almost entirely in Cape Town and Johannesburg. The Judges Hall of Justice was filmed inside the main campus of the University of Johannesburg. This movie was written by the excellent Alex Garland. Garland's 1997 novel The Beach was made into a film by Danny Boyle in the year 2000 with a screenplay written by John Hodge. However, Alex Garland would then write the screenplays for Boyle's 28 Days Later and Sunshine. Garland is now a renowned writer-director, having fulfilled both these duties on Ex Machina, Annihilation, and The Very Creepy Men. Dredd was shot on various 3D cameras, and its imagery was framed beautifully by the cinematographer Anthony Dodd Mantle. Its skillful editing was carried out by Mark Eckersley. And if you closed your eyes, Paul Leonard Morgan's industrial music score would make you think you were at a Nine Inch Nails concert. David Bowie's son, Duncan Jones, was originally approached to make this film, having received much praise for making Moon, released in 2009, and Source Code, released in 2011. Duncan turned down the offer to direct, but only on the grounds that his bold ideas on the project were much different from Alex's. Judge Dredd's co-creator, John Wagner, served as a consultant on the film. His input must have been invaluable. In fact, Garland and Wagner first met up to discuss Dredd at a Shrewsbury restaurant called the Peachtree. Apart from the aforementioned cast, the Irish actor Domhnall Gleeson puts in a winning performance as Marmar's unnamed computer hacker. Domhnall would go on to be one of the stars of Garland's superb Ex Machina. The Judge's distinctive sidearms, known as lawgivers, were modelled on Glock 17 handguns. During the course of the film, we get to see the effects of the slow-mo drug in action. These spectacular hallucinogenic scenes were developed by Garland and the special effects supervisor, John Thumb. I mentioned Clint Eastwood's iconic Dirty Harry at the start of my podcast because he heavily influenced Judge Dredd's creation. In the comic books, as a reference to the great actor, the place where Dredd lives is called Rowdy Yates' block, which happens to be the name of the character Clint played in the Western series Rawhide. This also explains why Carl Urban speaks with Eastwood's low, raspy voice as Dredd. I think it's rather neat that Judge Dredd's name was taken from the stage name of a British ska singer whose real name was Alex Hughes. After being shown at the San Diego Comic Con on the 11th of July 2012, Dredd received its first screening in the UK on the 7th of September that same year. It's saddening and rather surprising that Dredd failed at the box office. One major reason for this, in the UK at least, was that distributors insisted that most cinemas showed the 3D version, when there was clearly a high demand for the 2D version. Oh well. On June the 25th, 1982, two sci-fi movies came out that day that both failed miserably at the box office. One was called Blade Runner, and the other one was called The Thing. And we all know what became of those two. Likewise, Dredd's reputation will get much stronger over the years. I'm Stephen Archibald, and thank you very much for listening to my podcast, They Came From Within, Cult Movie Reviews. All of my podcasts can be found from most podcast hosts, as well as on Alexa and Audible. If you've yet to see Dredd, but love John Carpenter's Assault on Precinct 13, then you will absolutely adore this terrific movie. Take care of yourself, and goodbye for now.
Judgment time.
Let's finish this.
Law is not the law. I'm the law. Negotiations over. The sentence is death.